tone in one's voice and how when women, when they're speaking, have a tendency to vowel speak, as we call it here, where you go up at the end of your question, up at the end of what you're saying. So it sounds like a question, and have a tendency to not, what we call in acting, you put a button on a scene where you don't trail off. You finish talking and don't be afraid of a silence that you need to fill that subsequently follows what you've said. Even that in the silence can be people taking in what you're saying, but just put a definite punctuation on the end of what you're saying, and it will deliver your message with that much more intensity and credibility.
Looking back at all,
see how I did that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking back at all your varied life experiences and information that you've gathered over the years, and it's super interesting in how women speak. Would you say that you are someone who has always fit in, hasn't always fit in? If so, what kind of experiences around that have you had?
Well, it's this desire to fit in, I think, that can both undermine you. I'm in one of the industries, and clearly there are many where the outlier thing is extolled but not really subscribed to. They want you to be creative. They want you to be fearless. They want you to be artistic, but you got to wear a suit and show up to 5 meetings a week. So that creative spirit dichotomy, especially in the business of show, is often present. Personally, for me as a woman, there are many of my predecessors, female predecessors, have made it much more commonplace. I would even say our business was almost 50% women working there in executive positions. But fitting in terms of, it was mostly in terms of the B-suite, fitting in with like the heads of the company, where I didn't speak their language. I felt I was too creative, a spirit. There's a tenet in the kind of, and nice girls don't get the corner office way of, figuring out a way to have communion with people who sign your paycheck, but your job description doesn't provide an organic way for you to interact with them on a daily basis. So how do you give them a sense of you without looking like a brown nose? And so I would spend a great deal of time thinking of a sincere question, an authentic question that I was curious about, that they would definitely have the answer to, even if I already had the answer to it. Forget the curiosity, but I found it infinitely fascinating. I would find an appropriate time, not like to accost them in the hallway or raise my hand during a meeting, but just maybe call their office and say, listen, I'm thinking about doing X with this client, and I remember a story about you doing something similar with this client. Do you have a minute to fill in the blanks for me? I would love to hear how you did that. And yeah, it's a little bit kiss-ass, but you will get something out of it. But you should just see. I mean, agents we spend our whole lives extolling other people's myriad skills and talents. It's very rare, except of course in this instance, people want to hear about us personally, what we are, how we do it. So it's both flattering, it's bonding, and it can be really informational. Never mind strategic in terms of creating your connection with the higher ups of your company.
You talk a lot about how all-consumed you were in terms of building and then maintaining your business and over the years, and also how you pride yourself being on the queen multitasker, and that things came easily for you, especially in being able, as we just heard, to take and read people. And of course, all really important skills to being a talent agent. What is the negative impact of being so focused on work? And what tools have you learned to use to take care of your mental health over the years?
Well, my answer will be twofold, so remind me if I go off on a tangent. I tend to do that. I had a corollary response to this question. There is some research that shows that women are organically better multitaskers than men. Certainly, I don't think anybody would argue against the idea that women are better nurturers. And I, in high heels and backwards, was a professional, had a job through which the line between when you're working and not working is very blurry. The job in the office would be 8 hours. Then every day, maybe there's an event afterwards or a networking or a premiere. And even when, as a civilian, you're watching any media, any movies or TV or internet, you're scouting. So in LA, that kind of, all-consuming, we're working at the town factory, right. So there is a lack of perspective of the fact that there are other things going on in the world and people doing things and who don't care at all who your client is or how much their last movie made or even care what a movie is, which makes you lose your sense of scale and humanity a little bit, which I became acutely aware of following a trip to Morocco, which I shared with you in a previous conversation, which was, it just opened my eyes so much to just how, in the best way, insignificant I am and how to make the most out of my time here. But I also had 3 kids in 4 years. Boom, boom, boom. Just like, like I said, when I get things done. But, it's like you've been living in this one-room emotional house, and then you have children, and it's like opening a door to find you've got a whole other wing in there. And that became more important to me. Not more important, like to the detriment, but it became the overarching priority. There was nothing. And being in the entertainment business is both a boon and a bane in that regard, because yes, while the job is intense and it never ends, there's not a lot of banking jobs that would allow you to take off in the middle of the day to see a school play. There's not, right. There's not a lot of jobs you can do your homework, you can do your work on the weekend instead of during the week when it involves, meeting with an actor or reading a script. So it was both and so for me, yes, being a woman multitasking was great, but also being a woman having children, or at least in my case, not this for all women, but it helped me crystallize why I was doing any of this, so that I can provide, take care of, educate, and inspire the people I care about the most in this world, not to their detriment, but to their benefit. And of course, what that looks like changes as both they and I age. That was just all about college, working to save college. But I had this kind of this kind of crisis post-Africa, where I realized the things that I was good at, the nurturing, the being creative, and the sales, the networking, the easy charm, were becoming less and less valuable in a business that was becoming more and more about representing entities and companies than individual artists. And that makes sense. I mean, the overhead agencies need to have to compete with one another and offering all of these different services, from, representing sneakers to representing influencers to concert touring. It's not very remunerative, all of that work that goes into developing one artist who may or may not get a job. So the things I was being asked to do were less and less attractive to me. So, those were the two things I kind of realized.
Believe it or not, we're already at the end of our podcast today. I wanted to thank you so much, Louise, for sharing with us your interesting experience as a talent agent and also some of the psychological issues that came up for you. Where can our listeners find out online more to learn more about you?
Oh, gosh. I mean, if you desultory Google search would find it right now. As we know, I'm pivoting, but you can find me on LinkedIn to see what I'm up to. And
Great.
Get my musings on the world of business just under LinkedIn, the Louise Spinner. I'm the only one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital DIY startup platform for women. For more information on her guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. We believe in open and non-stigmatizing dialogue about the hidden psychological difficulties experienced by many successful entrepreneurs and highlighting the strategies used to overcome them, such as the fear of failure, of not being good enough, and that loud, chattering internal critic, is critical to helping other founders achieve success. Please join her next week for more Mindset for Success stories. That was Dr. Leslie Knudsen, and you can drop her a line at dr.leslieKnudsen@dr.leslieKnudsen.com.